the 17th of November 2023. Pylons. This is the second video on the pylons, north-south interconnector. And I've shown you in the earlier video where I stand. I would not be involved at all in the pylons because the people in them, by and large, are on the opposite side to me, but there are some that are on the correct side, and I don't want to refuse to help them. This is a major project. Now, Northeast Pylon Pressure Group, they set it up. The way it's looked at is they weren't great, the chairman and the secretary and the treasurer weren't great to get it going and get all this going, and that's all right. But they fit into the category of this one here, these two, right? There's 5 who really are useless. They'll make a submission to planning and that's it. But there's 2 out of 10 that'll want it, right? They'll want it. So North-South Interconnector Group, the main group, is Northeast Pylon Pressure Group, NEPP. And they want the interconnector. That is the hard fact. And that's where the dispute rises. They also want all the wind farms. Now, I've often asked the question, I've been at their meetings, and I hear them saying about the horrible effect it'll have on house prices and all of that, and the scenic impact and all that. And I could never understand how, in the County Meath, so I could never understand how the North-South Interconnector, which starts here in Trim roughly, now there's a plan to connect it down to Wexford, but for now that's where it starts here about Trim, and it goes right up into County Tyrone. Now, how is it that they were saying that these are ugly, unsightly, decrease property values and all that, and bad for health with EMF, electromagnetic forces, and yet the wind farms built next door to them here, built alongside here, were no problem at all. Now, the planning did not show that these wind turbines were to connect into the interconnector, but they could do that at a later stage because the interconnector could stabilize the grid. So how were Northeast Pylon Pressure Group able to stand up and keep a straight face and say, oh, the pylons are terrible looking, but the windmills are lovely? What is the difference? In fact, the pylons make noise and they go around, and there's cabling for them, the same as the interconnector. Granted, the voltage is higher. They're not bigger. The turbines are bigger. So that was one red warning sign. That was something to say. There's something not right about a group. Now, also, on the regulation brought in 2013, it said it was to connect the interconnector with 600 megawatts of wind energy in 600 megawatts of wind farms over in Donegal and Sligo, right? It said on it, yet that was never mentioned at any meeting. There is a deliberate, coordinated effort to keep the pylons separate from the wind farms, and that reminds me of the national meeting we had elsewhere, way over the country, and that reminds me of the situation I experienced before. And it simply means that when we categorize North-South Interconnector Group, NEPP, Northeast Pylon Pressure Group, which is specifically targeted at putting the cables underground, not to stop them altogether, to put them underground. We have the various categories, and so they fall into this one, that they want the cables, but they want conditions attached, that is, that they go underground. So that's the category they're in. So from my perspective, here we have every 10 groups have certain characteristics, and every 10 groups there are 2 that fall into this category. That doesn't mean I'm complaining about them, it just means that they'll fail. All of these fail, except for there was something special. These will all fail. This one here will not do well either. It just depends. But these ones here, the ones that go from the SEA, will succeed, and those who don't will fail as well, because even though they may gain on minor issues, the developer will come back again and fix it and come back again. And you've spent all your money. This is the way the wind farms work. They come at you, you spend all your money, they fix a few things. In some cases, they leave deliberate loopholes to get you to go on that. And when you win, you have to start again, and it's very laborious. Now, granted, you will get your costs, and you'll get the cost of your legal team, so you can come again at it. Okay, now, so I've made that clear about that. Now, so the thing about NEPP at the meetings I was at, I never saw any election of officers. Now, I believe that the top table would have been elected. I never saw any election of officers. I never saw any treasurer's report. And they hired a report on the undergrounding of the cables, and no, I'm a member of Northeast Pylon Pressure Group. I never got looking at it, no one ever saw it. They just tell us it says they can go underground. Now, there are huge issues with undergrounding. One is it AC or DC? Only alternating current works 3-phase will stabilize the grid. That is an engineering fact, no need to say that. The other thing is that if it's to be AC, the only proper way to do it, that it will work and that the cables can be replaced, is to have a corridor made out of reinforced precast concrete that fits in and links to each other. So they're like if you ever saw a long school, a long national school or a secondary school, there's corridors and the rooms are off that. So it looks a bit like that. They can be narrow enough. They don't have to be very wide, but they have to be high enough for an ordinary person to go in and work in there. That's the best state-of-the-art thing. The problem is it's hugely expensive. You have to dig out all this soil. You have to arrange for the disposal of the soil you take out. It's not easy done. And you have the problem then when you come to a river, what do? Granted, you can directional drill, but it's not good to have high voltage cables in connection with the ground, because in Ireland today, the ground is soaking wet. There's capacitance in that water. So if you have the cables, 3 cables, like this, the current will flow across between the 2. The current will flow across between the 2 of them. So if you have the 3 like this, the current will flow across. And that's a huge problem. Whereas if they're in the corridor, buried in the ground, they are safe from moisture. Moisture is not a very good thing, even though you can armor plate these wires and all. If you put them in the concrete bunker and there's no water in there, you nearly get away without any coating on them at all. You nearly do with exposed wires as if they were overground. There is heat generated, and you have to have some way of blowing air in and out there. Now, doing that in Ireland is not easy. There's lakes, there's bogs, there's everything else, and so they go for the overground option. Now, I was accused by NEPP of undermining their efforts to put them on the ground at the oral hearing in Carrickmacross in 2015. However, the regulation for the cables was overground. What was my point in talking about under or overground? The regulation and the application for planning was to put them overground on pylons. So there was no provision at all, or funding or anything for the underground option. The people who made the decision, the EU Commission in conjunction with Eirgrid, decided on this option. I can see why they would, and they decided on this option, and they did not consider the alternative of undergrounding. Explicit in the SEA directive, the EIA directive, and explicit in the Aarhus Convention, which is persuasive in Irish and EU law, international binding agreement, is the consideration of alternatives. That the alternative to all this, everything, must be considered, including the do-nothing analysis. That's the law. And yet, that was never looked at, never talked about. I heard nothing about it. And there is the huge weakness in the state, in the EU Commission's case and Eirgrid's case and the Irish government case, is they just clicked overgrounding and said, that's it. And they made the regulation, they brought it to Ireland, and the Irish planning authorities took this to mean the regulation means it must be granted. I took a judicial review on it. Judge Max Barrett said that the Board Planola had no decision to make, they had it granted. That meant 43,000 euros of submission fees were wasted. That's what Judge Barrett said. That cannot be the law, and I'll deal with that later. But I couldn't go on. It took me 16 days on my own, going up to the court, acting on my own. I'd have liked to be able to appeal it. I'd have liked if NEPP, with all their money, had to take it over and take the case over. I'd have gladly done that. And got it to the Court of Appeal, which almost likely would throw it out as well. And then you'd go into the Supreme Court, and as proved with the case of the Friends of the Irish Environment, the Supreme Court would go with the law. They have to. And that means they'd have to refer it to the European Court of Justice, and the European Court of Justice would have to rule in accordance with its already existing cases, and that is that the regulation is or is not overtakes the treaties on the functioning of the EU. So if the plan or programme is Irish, there is no doubt in law, none at all, that it has to be put through the SEA process. If not, it has to be dismissed, it has to be quashed. But what they're saying, and what the official side are saying, is that if it's a regulation, a piece of paper like this, which I will be dealing with, if it's a regulation, then it overrides the planning process. And we will look carefully at that. My opinion is it does not. And there's no way any Irish court, including the Supreme Court, will rule on that. That is a matter for the European Court of Justice. And you can go there, you only pay your own fees, and I'd say you'd even get your lawyer's fees if you went, because it's a highly important issue. There is a highly important issue. Is the regulation of the EU, does it, in relation to planning and matters of infrastructure, does it totally do away with the treaty of the functioning of the EU? And I believe it does not. How could they sign the Aarhus Convention? They'd have to have an exclusion in it for that. How could they produce the SEA directive? They'd have to put in a section, this does not apply to a regulation by the EU Commission. And the SEA directive says that plans or programs include those co-funded by the European Union. I would give 80 to 90 to 1, 8 or 9 to 1, or 80 to 90% in favour that the court would rule. When you get that ruling, they were back to square one. There'd be no pylons. There'd be no pylons. Okay, they had to start again. They had to justify the whole thing, the whole wind, the whole solar, the whole pylons, the whole thing. Electric cars, all would have to be assessed, and they're not up to doing that. You'd have them caught. We'd be old people before we'd see any move on this, because they're incompetent. They don't want this at any cost. And that is the secret to the pylons. And that is the reason I make this video, that maybe when people see that this is going ahead and the planning commissioner expires, I think it's January 2026. So they're rushing now to get this in. The COVID stopped them doing this, and they're rushing to get this in. And so this is going to plough ahead. So when it becomes apparent that this is going ahead, I want to have my videos there and my opinion considered for anyone that wants to deal with it. There'll be meetings of NEPP and all of that. And these are the key questions. I have no doubt they will reject all of this, and we seem to be down to the simple fact that there's going to be physical violence used. to prevent this. There will be terrible opposition to it, and there'll be a lot of people getting very, very upset about this, but that's something I can't do anything about. This is preventable. I mean, if you don't take preventative measures with my cattle, if I don't keep my hedges good, if you don't fix the slate on the roof, the rain is going to come in. That is a simple fact. And whether we like the EU or not, this is the law we have. It's working. It has worked several places. How people don't see this is a mystery to me. Anyway, folks, that's enough now on that. What I'm going to come back now next on is the regulation, and we'll be looking at that in great detail and looking at some of the laws in relation to it. And after that, then it's really up to people to go to these meetings. I was horsed out, put out of it. I got a lift up to one of their meetings in Navan, and I said, I'm not driving, so I'll have myself a nice whiskey. And I went out and I got my nice whiskey. And when I came in, the chairman came down and said, get out of here, get out, and made a comment about me undermining them about the undergrounding. And I left because I didn't want any racket. One man complained, but no one else did. Well, folks, those of you who are there, the day may well come when you may think back and realise that that shouldn't have been allowed to happen. If I was actively involved in that organisation, I would object and say everyone stays here, and I would force an election, and there should be an election for the committee, for the chairman, the secretary and the treasurer of the North East Pylon Pressure Group. It is a group. It has money available and given to it, including mine, and anyone who donates that should ensure that the proper rules for meetings are followed. That's up to them. I don't mind. I don't like to see the attack on the environment. I don't like to see the worry of the people concerned, but I have other groups, as I say, there's 1 in 9 that will go my way, and we're winning all the time, and they're the ones I have to look after. And but as the thing goes on, and as people begin to realise it, and in the next few months, I think a lot of people are going to realise, well, this is going ahead. This is going ahead. And it was said to me when I took my case in Dublin by a man on the street, you failed. You took your case and you failed. And he said, there you are, you're talking through your hand. I failed in the High Court. I didn't have the wherewithal to go ahead. Taking the notes is even a big job. I didn't even have a secretary, and I failed there. I had the help of another friend, all right. I failed there, but I would have to appeal to the Court of Appeal, and that's a whole new ballgame, and I'd have to appeal to the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court sent it to the European Court of Justice, you're not allowed in there without lawyers. So to fight this, you need a team of lawyers, and these team of lawyers must accept my view, my friend Pat Sorta's view, and otherwise they must be geared up. There must be no humming and hawing about it. They must do as they're instructed to do, and I would help them with that. And that'll do. Now, you'd go into court, you'd ask for an injunction to stop the interconnector. Whether the court would grant it or not, I don't know. There is one other fact before I leave, and that is that even these are built, they can be torn down. They can be torn down. People say they can't. They can be torn down. If God spares me my health, I'll prove it by pulling down some of the wind farms. That's the law. 2419 is the case. We'll leave you at that, folks. I hope I didn't lose good customers, good viewers on other things because of this video. But in my area, this is big. This is boiling now to boiling point, and a lot of people are very upset, and I fear maybe somebody will come out the worst of it. That's it. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We'll see you back for something else.